Great to see you again. I kind of wanted to start out with this Ed Martin story here. It's very frustrating. It's another one of these things with the Republicans. Like we're in our own way here. It just seems like we have to fight off the Democrats, the media, the lunatics, and our own party as well. And now you got Tom Tillis, who's dead set against Ed Martin, and it looks like it's going to be a gift to Boasberg to appoint this judge. So, what's your take on it?
Well, I mean, isn't that just the case? It is a gift to Boasberg. Remember, Tom Tillis has voted for Merrick Garland. You know, Merrick Garland, who it's kind of happened throughout our history, but thoroughly weaponized the American justice system in a lawfare way, worse than anybody else in American history. Again, it's happened from time to time. You get this sort of thing, but this was really on steroids, and that's Tom Tillis's guy, and he fawned over him too. You talked about how wonderful he is, but no, Ed Martin is some big problem. I mean, it's absolutely absurd because Ed Martin is highly competent and capable of doing this. He's already doing a good job temporarily there. He just needs to be given the authority to really clean up some major messes in DC that, frankly, Tom Tillis, because he's a DC scoundrel and creature, doesn't want to clean up.
And it seems today he says that he would vote for him. He would approve him in any other district, but because it's DC, he is afraid because that of the way Ed Martin is supportive of the January Sixers. He sees that, oh, we have to remember how big of a deal January 6 is. And so if this was any other district, I'd be okay with it. And so that even makes him look like more of a moron, in my opinion.
Well, what makes him really look like a moron, and by the way, I think you've gotten to know me well enough, Alec. I'm not the kind of guy that throws names out there too often. He is a moron because he didn't even read the Sixth Amendment. And it's not so much the Ed Martin pro January 6 people. It's that as a lawyer, he defended January 6 people. The Sixth Amendment allows people the right to counsel. I mean, it's the absurdity of what Tom Tillis is doing here is an outrage. Now, he probably feels like, because this is how he sets his wins up when he runs in North Carolina, he probably feels like he's engendering Democrat votes that he feels he needs to get reelected in North Carolina. That's literally how I look at it, because the guy has never been Republican or conservative in his voting record. I mean, he might vote for this or that thing that conservatives like, but his voting record is absurd. It's as bad. It was actually, as I recall, at one time, it was worse or just about the same as Joe Manchin's. So don't give me this crap of January 6th. Listen, Ed Martin is the guy for the job. He's very competent to do it. And Tom Tillis tips his hand when he says, just not this one. That is such a weak position to take.
Right. Yeah. You would think 80 million people voted for Tom Tillis, but that's not the way it worked out. Right? We voted for President Donald Trump. This is the guy he wants. Give him the guy. We can't just give it's like there's always something. And I just had Senator Ron Johnson on Tuesday on the show, and I asked him if he's going to support Ed Martin. And he said yes. And I said, do you think he'll get through? And he sidestepped that. Didn't even say it because I guess he knows that it ain't going to happen because of what's going on with Tom Tillis. But I'll tell you what, just from talking to him too, there's going to be a major problem when it comes to this one big, beautiful bill because Ron Johnson ain't going for it. And it sounds like there's a lot of other people that aren't going for it. It seems like that thing's going to be dead on arrival once it gets there.
Well, the big problem is because DC people are doing it. Think about this for a second. There is a promise of $1.5 trillion in cuts that Mike Johnson said when the budget was passed, that allowed for the reconciliation, that yes, you can promise you can kick me out of the speaker's office if we don't do $1.5 trillion. Well, this is how the Washington games played that a lot of people don't think about easily. $1.5 trillion of cuts over 10 years. That means, what, 200 billion, 300 billion in 1 year. But here's the worst part, and they've done this time and time again. They always put the bulk of the cuts in the out years that this Congress has no control over. No Congress can commit a future Congress to a budget and a spending bill. So it has to happen in the 2-year window or it doesn't happen, or whatever does happen there is all that happens. So it's just a scam in Washington, D.C. Ron Johnson's, I think, he's going against that. But it was nice to see President Trump's budget that came out, which actually showed a little hope, even more aggressive than what Republicans have been talking about.
Yeah, and it's talking to Ron Johnson. His whole thing was about the spending, and he said it was too much. He wanted to see it come down to pre-pandemic spending levels. So anyway, he was, he had his own bone to pick about all this, and we still have to see what the final product is going to be when it gets there. But I'm just saying, it seems like this is going to be the way it's going to be for the next 4 years. You're always going to have someone that, and the Democrats never have to worry about that. The Democrats, that everybody's on board. Hakeem Jeffries says jump, they all say how high, and that's just the way it is. Over here, it's everyone's got their own little agenda and something to weigh us down, and we can never just move the. Right now, we have once the midterms come, if we blow it, and it seems like we will, because that freaking election in Wisconsin where they didn't show up to vote in the Supreme Court, do the right thing. I forget the guy's name now, but we lost that one because people didn't come out to vote. It seems like we have a problem getting people to the polls, and if we don't do that for the midterms, the rest of the term is going to be a wash.
Well, as I've been saying over and over and over again, probably when we've talked before, the weak point of the Trump agenda is Republicans in Congress. That is our problem. And the thing is, everything that I get pushback sometimes from the more libertarian-minded right, to even some conservatives that are skeptical about Trump. I get pushback from them saying, how can you be so much for Donald Trump? Hey, listen, I do have a beef on a few things with Donald Trump, but here's the problem with that way of thinking that would shut him down. We have more with Donald Trump of all the things that we've been wishing for decades, literally, right now, if we would just go down the path. If we could just get down the path of the Trump stuff that's good, then we would just have a small amount more to deal with to maybe get us back to a constitutional republic. As it is, Republicans are unwilling to take the wins. And they're always capable of grabbing defeat out of the jaws of victory. Republicans have done it over and over again. They lie about what they do. So I remember in the Tea Party wave in 2010, all the Republicans in Washington are saying how smart they were, and look at the big win that we had. There was no Republican in Washington, D.C. who had anything to do with what happened in 2010. It was organic, ground game. Everybody just rose up because they were tired of how their country was getting stolen from them. That happened last November, but Republicans still haven't gotten the lesson. John Boehner shut down all the conservatives back after 2010, and now Republicans in Congress are doing the same thing. It is absurd. It's an outrage. It's got to stop, and we have 2026 to change this if we'd like.
Yeah, it's so hard to watch. And let me get to it, because also, too, along with this, obviously, is the media piece that is against them. And, some people like the fact that, I can see the point Trump sits down with all these people that really hate his guts, and he gives them the airtime, and they're getting millions of dollars in ad revenue from showing these interviews. He sits down with, somebody from MSNBC or someone from The Atlantic, and these people totally hate the guy's guts, and they're going to do everything to undermine him in the interview, and he still does it. So I give him credit for doing that. But at the same time, it's like, why feed these monsters like this? Because that's all they are. And now they try to break down his whole cabinet. They're going after Pete Hegseth, relentlessly. And so now you have Pete Hegseth basically purging the Pentagon of all these leaders. He's gotten rid of the DEI, and he's been focusing on this. And the media makes it sound like he's the worst Secretary of Defense in history. So give me your rundown on Hegseth and what he's doing over there at Defense.
Well, actually, I think he's doing a lot better than even I expected, to be candid. I think he's kept a level head. He keeps doing the things that he needs to do. He makes the proper argument for every move that he takes, showing the numbers, showing the reasons. His mantra of building warfighting capacity, not all these special interest gobbledygook little things that they throw in there to make people feel good. He's cut back all the climate agenda stuff. He's cut back all the social issue stuff. And now we are on a path to a warfighting machine. He got a big pushback from a lot of people saying he was going to cut general staff down a lot. By the way, the term general staff means generals with stars. That's what that means. He's going to cut them down because we're on a warrior to general ratio that is far higher than we even had in World War II. And that is a rational move. You don't need that many people doing that. You just need people who are warriors and enough people to plan. He does really understand what needs to be done in all of our warfighting capability. And I'm just I was pleased with his nomination, but I'm pleasantly surprised now. I think it's actually a very good thing that we've done. It might just reset us back to where we were prior to the Obama administration, when all the woke ideology started to get injected in.
And it does seem like too, Jim, that like if you have a guy like a Lloyd Austin in there who doesn't have to upset the apple cart, he just wants to be a status quo guy, do what he's told, and just let's just ride this out. He's got the media behind him that's going to cheer him on, even though the Afghan withdrawals a debacle. He disappears for 2 weeks, no one knows where he is. But it's like he's got the media to cover him up. Pete Hegseth's making these bold changes that need to happen, and so the media, as soon as he does that, the media is all over him because they hate him to begin with. They tried to derail him from even getting confirmed, and so it's like every little thing he's going to do, and he's making big changes that are necessary, that are going to affect the military for years to come. And the proof is in the pudding by you see thousands of people that are now joining the military. The recruitment is skyrocketing in all the branches. That's not happening because they hate Pete Hegseth or they have no confidence in him. It's happening because they like the direction the military is now headed.
We judge what's going on in this country by all the wrong measures. The media doesn't know what's really good and happening with this country because, for example, this upsurge in new people coming into military forces. They're not going to talk about that or put any perspective on it. And that is a ground up. The American people are very happy with what's going on. You're never going to hear that in the media. You don't even hear that enough on Fox News. I think Newsmax does a decent job, some other of the conservative stations, but you don't even hear that where it matters. The reality is American people are very pleased with what's going on. And the poll numbers show that. I mean, they even lie in the polls. The big media does these polling samples of 37% of Trump voters, and it shows that he's got the worst in history. I mean, it is absurd. So we have to just trust ourselves, just like we did in November. And the American people trusted themselves because this same onslaught was coming against Trump at the time. They didn't listen to it, and they moved forward. That's what we got to keep doing today.
And the way that the media, the way that they sound, especially when they're interviewing Trump, when they ask him these questions like, what do you say to the people that think you're destroying the country, or whatever they're going to ask him, it's like the way they talk to him is that they make it sound as if he didn't win the majority of the popular vote. Like they make it sound like he didn't win every swing state. They make it sound like this wasn't a landslide victory. This guy overwhelmingly won, and you're making it sound as if he got in there by a fluke or something happened where he just barely got in he didn't win the pot. Everybody in the country, the majority of the people in this country wanted this, and they try to act as if we got robbed. And it's like, this is exactly what we wanted to see. If you would just, and we're not even saying like the media needs to be all pro-Trump and kiss his ass. It's just, give us a level shot at this thing. Stop with the Trump derangement stuff. It's like, you think they would learn their lesson? I guess it has to be good for their ratings or something. I don't know why they continue to do it. And I would think nobody would want to see Trump in a third term more than the media, because without Trump, I think all their ratings are in the toilet.
Well, by the way, they're not even shooting towards ratings. They're only shooting towards destroying Trump. And if they can keep some ratings, they'll do it. They know if they speak to the group of people they're speaking to, then there will be some really farcically thinking people who will act upon that, and they feel like that they get something out of it. Listen, we've said for years that the media hate the American people, right? And that argument was always solid, but Trump did not win the popular vote, and just like a lot of Republican presidents in 2016, that evaluation of Democrats and of the media now that they hate the American people is more real now than ever, because Donald Trump got nearly 52% of the vote and won a fabulously solid electoral college vote. And they're still pretending like he didn't win. Yeah. That's evidence right there that this analysis was right all along. Of course, everything we're learning right now proves that things were right all along, but they really do hate the American people. They have an agenda to create an America that they want to create. It's connected in to World Economic Forum thinking. It's connected in to European thinking, where we've got, I think, a handful of elected leaders who've been refused to be able to run for their presidential offices in Europe. I mean, everything against liberty and freedom is happening in Europe. Look at what's happening in Great Britain. But here, liberty is happening, and the American media hate it. They do not want it to happen, and they're fighting tooth and nail to try to put us into a European situation, and we're just not going to have it anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy to watch it. And then one of the other things too is now we have different leaders in these different positions. Is particularly the FBI now is run by Kash Patel. We got Pam Bondi now at the DOJ, and Kash Patel. I had Congressman minority leader or majority leader, I should say, Steve Scalise on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he was praising Kash Patel for going to be releasing these FBI reports on the baseball shooting where Steve Scalise was shot. And because they had been saying it's suicide by cop, they were saying like all these different things that came out in the FBI report that were pushed down and hidden. They knew all along that this guy went there, a liberal-minded nut, to go there and particularly shoot GOP members. And so now we get that information out there, and that is exactly what happened. And so now we know a little bit more about what happened during that congressional baseball shooting.
Well, I happened to notice today that Molly Hemingway shared an article she wrote in 2017, shortly after the incident. And she also noted that this guy had gone into Bernie Sanders' office a couple of times shortly before this happened. Now, and she pondered at the time, think about if, say, it had been some conservative shooter shooting Democrats and that person had gone into Ted Cruz's office a couple times. What would have happened then? Bernie Sanders has not paid a price for this that he actually does deserve. Like, it wasn't just that the guy was a Bernie Sanders supporter, and I'm not necessarily claiming that he coordinated this with Bernie Sanders. I'm just saying that these are the kind of people that Bernie Sanders has a part of him, and enough of them go crazy like this. This is what Democrats foment at the end of the day, whether they intended this particular outcome or not. We now know that this was a politically motivated, orchestrated, highly planned shooting event, that the FBI did not go even further to aggressively understand what was happening. We know that their report was weak, not just because of the conclusions they came to, but the fact that we don't even have all the evidence worked as deeply as it should have been. And that was in 2017. Listen, this is a bad situation that Kash Patel and Pam Bondi have got to clean up. I'm glad that they reported this, but where was the news conference? There probably, I was thinking as I was looking at all this, there are probably a dozen more things just like this that can as quickly be revealed with a press conference, laying out the case why it was so wrong, and also laying out the case about how the agency failed. And we need a whole lot more of that. The American people need to know that how flawed and failed and really deep statey all these organizations, particularly the FBI, have become. And it's got to change quick. And Kash is there. I'm happy for it. But we got to be more aggressive.
I was just going to say, Jim, it's like, that's exactly what you're saying is exactly what Kash Patel was saying on this show like 6 months ago. All of his verbiage about this, his whole vernacular was about demolishing the FBI because it's just like you said. And now it's like we don't see that happening right now. We're kind of all scratching our heads a little bit saying, well, wait a minute. Why does it seem like now all of a sudden things have shifted here? Now, we also, too, like, and with Pam Bondi, with the Epstein list, it's like, I was kind of suckered into that because I thought just from listening to Kash and Bongino, and I was assuming we were going to get that on day one. But it was like first it was like phase one where everyone came out with the binders. Everyone had an Epstein binder. Then it was they're on my desk. And then it was there's a truckload of them outside the office. Now they're all on film. And it's like, well, it just seems like we're being jerked around with that. Just be straight with us. Say, hey, listen, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. But this seems like they just keep tickling us with this stuff.
Oh, they got to stop it, too. They really need to make it go out. But here's what this reveals, though. There are two major things working when these sorts of situations are in, a classified state and you want to get them out and they need to. The first one is, as we saw with the Epstein files originally, and with this FBI report we talked about earlier, is that they refuse because they're actually trying to do something nefarious to the American people. That's one thing at work. I do believe that's been largely extracted here. But then there's the second part that becomes really problematic. Because, and as I've said many times for many years, most, maybe even up to 60 to 90% of classified materials in the federal government are classified for political and not for real classification purposes. So now suddenly the political starts to happen. And what takes place is it reveals sometimes even Republicans that are being stupid. Now, I'm not saying this with the baseball field shooting, but I am saying it with the Epstein files, We had a report that came out in 2017. CNN reported this even, that $17 million was paid out of funds in the speaker's office for sexual harassment potential suits that were going to happen against members of Congress. And they shut them down, so there was no political consequence to these members of Congress by paying people off and getting them to sign non-disclosure agreements. Now, if that one thing isn't bad enough, what do you think is going to be on the Epstein files?
Yeah.
And these people do not want to release it because it's going to go both ways. It's going to be Republicans and Democrats. And suddenly, whoa, hold on, you're looking at it privately, you say, oh, okay, this is a little bit more than I thought. Well, I don't care if it's a little bit more than you thought. We want the info. We need to have this out here because at the end of the day, the Epstein files may represent the core, the literal core of our deep state problems in the United States. And we'll find out it's not always about we want to change America to become a socialist paradise type stuff. And there is some of that sentiment out there or something leading up to that. But then what you found out is, no, we're deep stating because we love the ability to do these things without anyone ever knowing or ever having to pay a consequence. That's a big part of the deep state as well that we need to extract. And I think the Epstein files represent that. They need to come out. They just need to get it done now.
It just seems like we'll never get another chance. If it doesn't happen, like while Cash is there and Pam Bondi's in there, it'll never happen. But it's like,
no, it's true.
Pam Bondi said yesterday, she's saying we were there's hundreds of videotapes of like child porn and all this stuff. So it's like, you're telling me that you're seeing somebody in a tape and that person's still walking around right now with no trouble. Like, how does that make any sense? You have some guy on videotape. You should have that guy in handcuffs. Like, how does that doesn't jive? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, so she says, like I said, first it was truckloads of files. Now it's on videotape. We have hundreds of hours of videotape and no one's in handcuffs. To me, that's alarming, man.
If you got the tape of it and the person is identifiable in that tape doing, performing that act that is illegal, then, okay, you might take about 5 days to a week to kind of put the rest of your case together real quick. But the case is there. You just look for a couple of loose ends and figure it out and indict them. It's absolutely absurd. And by the way, if the Epstein files didn't come out and they just started indicting hundreds and hundreds of people that are on this, that might suffice as well too.
Right.
Because this is a problem that must be extracted from this country immediately, or else, as you rightly say, we're never going to have another chance at it.
Yeah. And let me get to a little bit of the domestic foreign talk here with we have the new Canadian Prime Minister. And we went for, this guy, Mark Carney, too. He's all tough talk and then he's all charm when he gets around President Donald Trump. So he's kind of like a two-faced guy there, a little bit of a slime minister. But what was your take on the Mark Carney's visit to the White House?
I loved how Donald Trump totally pumped Mark Carney, and he deserved it too. And by the way, you got to love Donald Trump and how he doesn't negotiate. What a fearless negotiator. In fact, for those who want to be good in sales and maybe ever bought Donald Trump's Art of the Deal book, this is the one. There's a whole bunch about sales, and I took a lot of sales courses. Zig Ziglar, I read Donald Trump's book. When I was young, I was doing sales, and I learned a lot, and it was great. But here's the one thing that everyone has a hard time getting over, or most everyone does, and that's sticking with the plan, even when you're looking like you're doing something embarrassing. Donald Trump sitting there in front of Mark Carney saying, oh yeah, absolutely, we're looking for them to become the 51st state, right in front of the guy's face. I love that. And the thing is, I don't know if Donald Trump really, really, really wants it to be the 51st state. Maybe he does. I don't think so. But here's the thing. He credibly keeps that out there, and he'll be dead serious and go for it if it really comes down to it, or else you're not really doing a negotiation, right? You got to offer the things that you think you're going to be willing to take. But he's willing to do that. And what are we getting out of it? They're putting their proper money into NATO. Carney talked about needing to ramp up his own defense spending and taking a load off of us defending them, right? I mean, you're getting some of these things that are there, and hopefully a tariffs deal as well too, which he'll get. And all of that will be fantastic and highly beneficial if that's the outcome. But the reality is that this country is in a mess Mark Carney's making it a worse mess. And Donald Trump having a firm stand there is fantastic. Last thing, you'll notice that Carney was there in the middle of this soliloquy over the 51st state that Trump was doing, trying to find a time that he could jump in at any time. It was beautiful. Donald Trump, for whatever negative you want to think about him, the guy is a brilliant person at dealing with these situations. And I love every minute of it.
And what's great too is it's almost like in the NFL, like a quarterback that pump fakes, and it's like the defender jumps 10 feet in the air. That's what Trump's doing, and he pump fakes every time he does it. They jump on the pump every time, and they'll go, "Oh, look what Trump did," and then he's over here. You know, it's like so he does this whether it's with world leaders, whether it's with the press, and it is fun to watch. And I do think that this time around we're getting a chance to enjoy him a little bit more for who he is and how he's doing this as president. He seems to be having a little bit more fun in the role, but there is these things like we started at the beginning here. The problem is that we have the House and in Congress with the Senate. We got a problem. And if we just had everybody on board right now, man, we could make fundamental changes to this country that would be lasting. Codifying all of his executive orders. We could make these changes that would last for decades to come. But if we don't get the House on board, it's just going to be a temporary Band-Aid like it was in 16, 17.
Well, it is. And by the way, that brings up a little bit better football analogy, not to put you down too badly. The pump fake thing's good, but it's even better than that. For every young person, every Gen Zer and younger millennial that has not seen Earl Campbell or Barry Sanders run, Donald Trump in these situations is a combination of Earl Campbell and Barry Sanders. He can hit hard and roll out of it, and he can totally fake people out and go down the field. Donald Trump's the Barry Sanders of politicians. And we need that because it's the only thing that's saving Republicans, back to your point here, the last point here. The Republican Party is incapable of this kind of play in the game because they have their own personal interests, personal preferences at the heart of everything. Everyone thinks Donald Trump is narcissistic. He actually really is fighting for the American people. He actually does have a goal that's a little bit bigger. And he's a human being. We all have our own perspective and the thing that we want. But these are really big goals that do not directly benefit him, that do not directly benefit anybody that he could ever feel he owes anything politically to. They are totally independent of any political considerations in Washington, D.C., which makes them the right considerations because they're also good on principle and also makes them effective. But it also highlights how bad Republicans are and how much they need to grow up and learn what Donald Trump has shown them, because it's a masterclass of politics. Whatever you think of his policy, it's a masterclass.
It is, and things like too, he's donating his salary again. I think this time to veteran causes. He donates it every time, and it's like he doesn't get it. No one ever talks about that in the media. They make it like, oh, he's just supposed to do that when none of these other humps ever did it. So, take me away here, Jim. What do you got going on with the Conservative Caucus? What are you working on?
Well, we're getting ready for 2026. We just actually put out a mail piece to our people to let them know, give them kind of a framework of where we're going. We're getting this set up. We're taking a look in New Jersey at the race for Bill Spada there, who's a fantastic conservative. We're getting set on which areas we might want to get involved with in Senate races coming up in 2026. Obviously, we're going to be looking at Tom Tillis if we find someone
I hope
there.
So.
But places like Texas and Georgia and other, we're investigating closely right now what's happening. We are going to be on the ground making a difference, and people can find out what we're doing as we roll it out at theconservativecaucus.org.
Theconservativecaucus.org. I got the link in the description down below. Jim Pfaff, always a pleasure to get you on the show. Hope to have you on again soon. Thanks for giving me a few minutes of your time today on the Alec Show.
Thanks, Alec. Always great to be with you.